Hello, people! My name's Samuel Massie. I bet all of you guys in here own a smartphone. And I also bet that smartphone is with you here today, and it's not in your backpack. It's either in your pocket or it's in your hand. And in average, all of you guys in here spends more than 4 hours every day. All of you guys and the rest of the Western world, 4 hours every day on your smartphones. That's more than what you spend with your friends or even your family. It's the closest thing you have. And for me, that raises the question, when is it that you are using the digital world, and when is it that you are misusing it? When was the last time, for example, you guys thought that you would just leave your cell phone home for a whole day turned off? And when I look back at my life, I would say that I was definitely misusing it in a very high degree. But when I was 17 years old, I decided to turn off my cell phone for 1 whole year. Because when I look back at my life, when I was young, or when I was younger, I'm now a grown man in the beginning of my 20s, but when I was 16 years old, I remember I was living in this start of an era where everybody owned a smartphone, a computer, an iPad, and I remember I was home studying, and suddenly my phone would go bing, and I read it, and it's a message from Kristin, wondering if I want to join her for cinema tonight. And I write her back, and I go back to my studies, and suddenly it's a new bing. It's a notification. Liverpool's winning 2-1 against Manchester. And I go back again to my studies, and it's a new bing, it's a new bing, it's a new bing. And the bottom line is that I love all of these bings, but for every single bing, it takes me out of my concentration, out of here in this very moment, into everywhere else. And what's so dangerous about it is that it creates a habit for all of us. It creates a habit of not being able to concentrate on anything for more than just a moment. Always having this easy escape route into this screen of the digital world. And for me, I started leaning on it like a crutch. And at every single moment where I just didn't get instantly stimulated, or every moment where I just felt a little bit uncomfortable, I would dive into that screen. Or at every moment where I just met a tiny bit of challenge, I would start giving up. And when you start giving up at every single challenge in life, it's not going to take a long time before your self-confidence just gets blown away. And for me, with the lack of focus, my grades in school went straight to hell. The doctors started diagnosing me with concentrational disorder, dyslexia, and several other diagnoses. And at home, instead of confronting these feelings, I would just paralyzing them, trying to dive into the screen of digital doping. But when I turned 17, I made a decision. I made a decision to set sail to the world's most roughest and remote continent in the whole world, Antarctica, to spend 1 whole year without any reception in solitude of the digital world. And I started sailing, and for the first 2 weeks, I just panicked. Totally panicked. I remember, it was a digital detox, and I was full of abstinences, just like running around on the boat with my phone up high, trying to get any reception. And when you're out in the middle of fucking Antarctica, it's quite limited of how much reception you're going to find. But it wasn't the lack of reception which was the worst part. It was what it led to, and it was the worst sound I knew. And that was the sound of complete silence. It was the worst sound I knew. For every day, the sound just got more and more intense. And the more quiet it was outside of me, the more of this storm was just brewing inside of me. And at some point, I just cracked. and I start crying, and it's like all of these suppressed feelings that I've been feeling just hits me in the face with a hammer, and as a reflex I'm reaching for my phone without any reception, just clutching it hard to my chest. And for all of you guys who have broken out of bad habits before, you know it's a tough change. And there in the silence, it's just snot and tears everywhere, but it's nowhere to hide. I have to be there all alone with myself. And I cry, and I cry. And when my crying's done, I just feel this calmness coming over me. It's this calmness of having able to broken down these walls of uneasiness, disconnecting with the world and actually connecting with what really matters, which is myself. And after that moment, I started enjoying the silence. I started enjoying the sailing. And we're sailing 3,000 kilometers away from nearest civilization, where nature is wildest. And when you're all the way out there at sea, it's this feeling of being sufficient that hits you. Because when you set sail from your last port of call, you know that when that storm hits you, you have to be sufficient. You have to be good enough. Because when you're in the middle of that storm and it's crazy, you cannot call somebody for help. You cannot Google what you should do. You have to stand there and stand through it, because that 35-meter high fucking wave is a very physical thing coming straight against you compared to all of that internet bullshit we're surrounding us with. And you have to be sufficient. You have to be good enough. You have to take that responsibility. And that responsibility is something I wish I would have taken a lot earlier in my life. And after that storm, when everything quiets down, it's this sort of boredom which hits me. Because I remember at home I was bored a lot, but at every time I was bored, I would try to paralyze it, dive into, I would binge watch sitcoms, I would just try to paralyze it with the Facebook feed or news feed, and doing anything to not be left alone with that boredom. But here, just imagine, I'm out sailing, everybody is downstairs sleeping, it's in the middle of the night, and I know that I'm going to stand there, sailing that boat, doing nothing else for the next 6 hours before anybody comes up and keeps me company. And the only thing that keeps me company is the sound of the waves hitting the bow and the stars in the sky. And for the old me, that would be an unbearable boredom. But for the new me now, that's the ultimate boredom. It's in that boredom I managed to just relax my shoulders and just disconnecting from the world and focusing on this very moment, focusing on myself. And it's in that moment I managed to reflect on where I've been in life, where I am, and even where I want to be. It's in that very moment I managed to disconnect from that autopilot which every one of us has inside and set a course for the future consciously. And it was in that ultimate boredom that I set myself the most hairiest goal, a guy who's been fully diagnosed with everything could have had. I set myself the goal that when I get home to the digital world, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write the whole book. And most of you guys are probably wondering, how can a guy who flunked everything of school and couldn't concentrate for more than 20 seconds for just a year ago manage to write the whole book? But you know what I did? I found a solution. I went home and I took my phone and I found this strange button on the side of it, which is a button I use very often today. And I pressed it and turned it off. And I turned it off for 6 months. And I started writing. And I wrote, and I wrote, and I would write for days and nights without any stopping. And I wrote 387 pages, and I became an author. I became a best-selling author. And I wrote that book to prove for myself that if I want to, I am able to say that change is possible. Because to first fix your problems, you have to understand them. And when you are logged on in your mind every day for several years, it's like a computer, you know. You have to restart it. You have to just turn it off sometimes. And I'm not telling you guys to turn off your cell phones for 6 months like I did, but why don't try a week? Why don't try one day? Because it's only up to you how you want this digital world to affect your life. Thank you very much.